Hello, everyone, and welcome to TechDev Academy's College Prep Panel. We're really excited to put this event on today, and we hope you find it helpful as you prepare for your college application season. Okay, so we have a fantastic lineup of panelists today: Busra, Burak, and Senan, and myself. We will start with some introductions for each of us, and then we have a prepared list of questions that we'll all answer in a roundtable style. And then at the end, we'll have live questions from you all. So at any point during the session, feel free to drop some questions into the chat, and we'll get to them at the end. So I can start. My name is Sasha Anronikov. I recently graduated, well, relatively recently graduated from Cornell University, class of 2022. I am currently an immunology researcher at Stanford. I'm a first-generation American and first-generation college student, and I actually started my higher education journey at my local community college before I transferred to Cornell. And that inspired me to start an organization on campus that is meant to support community college students as they transition into Cornell. And I'm happy to say that organization is still running, 2 years since I graduated. And a few other of my involvements on campus were being a student advisor, a teaching assistant for a few classes, a peer mentor for first-generation students, a CALS ambassador, and a research scholar.
Hi, I'm Agsak. Right now, I'm a senior at UC Berkeley. I'm double majoring in data science and cognitive science. I'm also a first-year college student. I've also transferred from a local community college in Irvine. And my experience have been tough and joyful at the same time. I've been doing dementia research at Berkeley. I'm working with a company called Agsak. And I'm an AI a research assistant there. We're working on biomarkers for determining MCI, my cognitive impairments. And that's all.
My name is Burak Yazici. I just graduated from University of California, Santa Barbara, from psychology and brain sciences major. I took computer science classes too, but we didn't have the minor. I took as much as possible. I just want to learn the technical part. I was a research assistant in Ember Lab, which was a closed relationship lab, social psych. And then I have lived in I think I've been to 3 or 4 different countries while I was in high school, and after I came here, I was a CC student, and then transferred to UC. During my time in University of California, I published one poster and one paper, and yeah, and now I work in TechDev as an events and sponsorship manager.
Hi everyone, I'm Senan. I'm a recent Stanford graduate. I was an international student from Karachi, Pakistan, but similar to some of these other guys, I've lived in a lot of different places. Currently, I'm the CEO and co-founder of Collegio AI, which if you guys are high schoolers looking to apply to college, I recommend you checking out. So I've been working on it for over a year now. We've raised close to $1 million in funding from mostly investors in the US. And we're looking to take the service that people pay, thousands or even tens of thousands of dollars for, and create an accessible, equitable way that people can access it for free. So that's some of the other stuff about me. I think there's some other things here as well. But yeah, happy to chat later.
All right, that brings us to our first question. And I think the way we'll answer it is maybe in just the order that it is on my screen: Burak, Senan, and Busra, and then me. Okay, so first question is, why did you choose your college, and My video is covering my screen here. Okay, what factors should students consider when deciding which colleges to apply to and ultimately to attend?
So I'm starting, right? Do I understand that right? Okay. So it's a funny story. When I first came to the States, which was like 5 years ago, I was visiting a friend in University of UCSB shortly, and I loved it. The city, everything about it is just. I was like, I wanted to come to the school. It was a beach campus. They told me how good they are with research. I love the people there. And I think it was around COVID or right after COVID. So I was seeking that social side of that school too. That was the reason one of the biggest reason at least I chose it. Um, but of course it's a hard question to answer because it's different for everyone. I tried to balance it. What I mean by that is I applied to every UC and I got into UC Berkeley. I didn't get to UCLA and every other school I got in. And I didn't want to stay in Bay Area, even though UC Berkeley was a better school in different ways. I knew if I were to go to Santa Barbara, I was gonna be happier and it would affect my studies in better ways. And I always believed I would go to grad school at some point. So undergrad, I was okay with the school I wanted more than which one was better. But of course, it's different for everyone. If you are determined to go somewhere and then you have a plan, you might choose something more in a different way. Let's say they have a great research program, they have a great medical program, and then you can go to that. But I try to balance it in a way that you're happy and it's really good for your, future too. I think that's my answer for this question.
All right, Senan, you're next on my screen.
Awesome. Yeah, sure. So for me, I think, and I'm not sure how many people here are international students, but I know prestige is a huge factor. And yeah, once I got into Stanford, it was, beyond my wildest dreams. I was extremely grateful to have been able to attend, and it definitely drove my decision. In hindsight, I think kind of building off a little bit of what Burak said, location, 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 it matters way, way more than you might think. And especially for international students, when you're, chasing prestige or chasing scholarships or um, whatever you're looking for, I think it's so key to understand actually where you're going. Like maybe you're going to a more prestigious school in Chicago, but also it's like minus 20 degrees Celsius in Chicago. So I think it's really important for you to balance out all of those factors. And of course, aid is another big piece. Understanding what the campus is like, proximity to cities. Do you prefer, if you're a city person, like going to a school at Stanford, like there's no city nearby, like San Francisco or San Jose is the closest, it's like 30, 45 minutes away. On the flip side, if you want a college campus, but you're studying at, NYU, for example, that's not something you're going to have. So I think really understanding what's important for you and what you think is important, uh, that what you would want in the future as well is really key. I would really, really recommend speaking to people who've gone through the college process, gone to the schools you're thinking of applying to. And yeah, another piece could be thinking about your department and really understanding. And not everyone knows what they want to study going into college, but if you have, a few different domains that you might be interested in, you should also look into seeing how that faculty is in that school. I think job placements is something that's extremely, extremely underrated. So like I can give you the example of Stanford. So Stanford, of course, is like a very prestigious university, and a lot of people go on to do like very successful jobs after Stanford. But the job support actually within the university is extremely weak. And they're mostly just riding on the fact that they're qualified students coming in, they're going to figure it out. Versus if you think of another school like University of Waterloo, for example, in Canada, that has like a co-op program that's much, 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 much more in-depth and robust in the way that they match students with jobs. And I think those are just some of the factors that you can think about. I see all of the schools here in the US, but another one is immigration. If people are thinking about immigration and things like that, US might not be the easiest place to immigrate to if that's what you're looking for afterwards. But yeah, these are just some of the factors that I recommend people to think about. But yeah, just really do your research, spend time on Reddit, try to talk to people, make a LinkedIn, try to like DM people. You'd be surprised by how friendly and forthcoming people can be. And I say that with the like caveat that you probably will have to like message 5 people before one person responds to you. But yeah, I think if you guys ever do cold outreach stuff, you realize that's not a bad ratio. But yeah, that's a little bit about my spiel. I'll let the next person go. I'm not sure who's next.
Yeah, it's me. For me, like as you said, I reached out to people while choosing my college, which college should I go to. I got accepted to all of the UCs, so it was a big decision for me. Which college should I choose? And then I started messaging people on LinkedIn, and since the students, I started to message them and ask like I'm going to do cognitive science, data science, what do you think? And their ideas and what they say really shaped my decision. Because like without living there, you can't know what's gonna happen once you're there. So that's a big thing. Reach out to people, ask as many questions as you can. The next thing, as everyone like mentioned, is location. Location is really important if you're a city person or if you like more like small areas, small communities. It's really important to find the location that suits for you. Next is social life. I think like in universities, especially the competitive ones, there's not not so well social life. Like you can't get to have so much time with your friends and stuff like that. So you have to really consider that. Are you going to study 24/7? Can you do that mentally before going to the college? And the other thing that everyone mentioned is department. Just check out which departments you want to go and how does the university rank on the department that you want to go in. And yeah, the last point that I want to touch on to is looking at the support system in the university. The support system is really, really important once you're at university because your family is not with you at that point of time. So you have to really be considerate of that. Like, is the student body good? Is the professors considerate of the students and stuff like that? Once you ask the students who are like studying in those colleges, how is the support system over there? I think they will be really honest about it, and you won't have trouble finding the good answer with that. So yeah, those are all the points I want to mention.
Sweet. Those are all fantastic answers. So I chose Cornell because partially because of location. As everyone said, that's a huge part of it because you are spending like 4 years there. And I really liked how rural Cornell was and how it's in Ithaca, New York, which is its own little bubble because for miles and miles in any direction, it's just forestry and nature. So I really love the aspect of like being in my study bubble and, being able to dedicate all my time to just studies. And then also, of course, Cornell is known as a renowned research institution, and I knew I had a passion for research because I took a microbiology summer research program at Rutgers when I was in high school. So I knew I had a big interest in that, and ultimately that's why I chose Cornell. And I think we covered a lot of what factors to consider. The one thing I would add is if you have the opportunity to, I highly recommend visiting the campus so that you can really get a feel for it, because at least for me, that is the moment where I truly knew that Cornell was for me. I visited many different schools, but when I set foot on Cornell's campus, I was like, yes, this is absolutely the place where I will go. I had like the it feeling that I've read about online, and you only like know what it is when you experience it. So I would add to visit the campuses if you can. Okay, and then our next question. What are the most important factors in a college application essay? Or sorry, college application. I already said mine out loud.
So my recommendation, I guess, is the question. It's going to be a little different answer than the question, but uh, thinking from the admissions shoes, and how to do that is you already know the students who are applying to same schools. Let's say you live in California, almost everyone is applying to California universities. And going through your friends and then your classmates, you know what they have, and having something unique and having something that's going to catch attention is always my recommendation. And sometimes it can be super simple, sometimes it can be super small, but what matters is once the admission has have those essays and documents, they will be like, okay, same GPA, same researcher, same project, but what else I can add to that? What else I can show that that's gonna spark an interest from their side? Because especially these days, there's so many people who are applying to same schools, who are applying to top schools, and uh, at least for me, I always saw it from their side, and I was like, if I were to have this project, which I never heard of from other people, and it is important for my area. I'm not saying something random. Of course, it has to be still important for your area, for your school. Like for my school, of course, it's not going to apply to everyone, but for my school, for example, surfing was a big thing, and even though it has nothing to do with my area, my major, having surfing experience, having surfing competitions, clubs, could spark an that interest, because people in those admissions are sometimes grad students from that school, sometimes people from that city, sometimes from same town and everything, and they want to see people who are in that area and who are gonna be a good fit. And I think that's one of the most important factor. Of course, GPA has been always the biggest factor, but like I said, as if you're applying to Stanford, if you're applying to University of California, Berkeley, everyone has a 4.0, and you want to have something different. You want to have something that's gonna fit into that, culture, in my opinion.
Awesome. So just to clarify, we're talking not about the essay, we're talking about the whole application, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
it's just that I think the essay is so important that I jumped the gun
Yeah.
and said it.
Yeah, no worries at all. So yeah, I think Burak made a lot of great points. For me, and one thing I always advise students is the importance of telling a holistic application story. So one thing that really stands out for a good application versus a great application is telling that cohesive story and having that silver lining throughout. And I could, give the example of my own application. What I thought worked really well is that I wrote about, a more typical essay topic, which is moving around a lot growing up. And in my personal opinion, the uniqueness of your essay does matter. However, much, much more important is the execution. And I think, yeah, it's important to execute a good essay, but I wrote about moving around a lot growing up, having like that feeling of otherness accompany me throughout my life. And then that kind of translated into my extracurriculars, that was translated into my recommendations, my own essay, and then what I also wanted to study, my reasoning for wanting to study it, which at that time I wrote that I wanted to study political science and that I wanted to, make a change and work on, making inclusive institutions and things like that in the future. So that story kind of made sense. It clicked, and it does, like, this is just my example, but you could be, someone who's really interested in chemistry, for example, and you have to have a story about, okay, how are you initially interested in chemistry? Your recommender should also be like one of them a chemistry one, maybe another STEM one, kind of telling that cohesive story. And I think this image is also really good for thinking about it as different pieces of a puzzle that you're trying to fit together. And the individual pieces might not make sense, but you have to portray it in such a way that when it's in front of you, you can look at it and the university admissions officer can immediately understand what it is. And that's often what I find they are looking for. And speaking to some ex-admissions officers, it's a lot about, for them, feeling a personal connection to the student and them also understanding, okay, what is that person going to do in that in the like university once they actually sit there. So maybe, you know, Busra is a musician, maybe Burak is a journalist, maybe Sasha is a, you know, football player, for example. Like they're able to like see that and understand what that person is going to be like in their class, because at the end of the day, they're trying to make a diverse class and they want that, like they're looking for different types of students, right? So I guess that would be kind of my high level advice.
Yeah, really, really great points. When I was looking into factors that are important for college applications, I watched a lot of YouTube videos where like people were stating their essays, their extracurricular activities. I wanted to, like, they were accepted from Harvard, Cornell, Berkeley. I wanted to see what was the common point that each one of them had. So as all of you said, like they did really unique stuff that that they had interest in. For example, one student who got into Stanford, she was interested in economy. She wanted to study economy in Stanford. So she went ahead and wrote her own book on economy, and she sold it to her community. Maybe like she printed out 50 copies of the book, but I think that was a big part of the application she gave in. So I think having interest and following your interests, telling your story, and then making your story an action by doing extracurriculars that demonstrate them is the key point in applications. Um, yeah, that's the biggest point for me. Having a story and demonstrate the story with the actions that you do with the extracurriculars that you have.
I think this question was answered really well, and so I'll keep my contributions short so we have time for the other questions. I will say, yeah, I think the college essay is the only opportunity where like you can showcase your actual voice as a candidate, because everything else, you know, GPA, that's a number, extracurriculars, okay, there's bullet points, the admissions officers they have all this information in front of them. Your essay is the only part where like your true voice can shine and you can do your thing in weaving your whole, you know, puzzle pieces, as Senan said, together. Okay, so next question.
If I can just interject very quickly, Sasha, I will say that something people don't know about, a lot of people don't know about, is this additional information section. So this is actually like another 650 word section where you can put in a little bit more of your voice. And that doesn't necessarily mean to write another essay, but to maybe have some bullet points, like extended bullet points where you can expand upon your personal circumstance, expand upon any specific extracurricular activity and things like that. So I think that's another section that a lot of people overlook, that is super useful to use.
For sure. Yeah, good point. Okay, so for the next one, how do I write a compelling college essay? And if you're comfortable, panelists, maybe share what you wrote about in yours. I know, Senan, you already touched on yours.
So I think this is Sasha's question. Genuinely, she would be the best to answer. But I'm just gonna tell you guys what I did. My journey was the kind of journey that could be a movie. So I was lucky in that way. But giving the movie is not enough, in my opinion, because the movie ends and then you don't know what happens after. What matters in an essay, what I did at least, was I told them my journey, and also I told them what kind of person that made me, what I learned from that. So showing that transformation and what you take from everything you live was an important thing for me, because I could have just told them the story, but if I took something wrong, or if I took it in a way that it didn't help me, it would just be a story. So I told them my journey, about how I traveled so much. I had to travel. It wasn't even a choice, and all of it, and how I endeavor all those things, and then still came to the application point and did my work. But I'm hoping everyone else will have, better answers. That's what I did at least.
Yeah, so sorry. For me, I wrote about like I mentioned a little bit briefly already about my own personal life, like growing up, living in different places. And I think there is a little bit of a format. So since this is closely related to what my startup is doing, like I've spoken to a lot of ex-admissions consultants, people who worked at, a lot of top universities, people who work at the top of the private practice as well. And they say there are generally like two key formats that are most successful. Um, and that is like I guess the easier one, which I can elaborate a bit more about, is kind of the idea of you have some sort of symbolism, then you take that symbolism, you present a problem, then you have a climax to the problem, and then you have a solution or resolution, but the solution or resolution actually has to come from within yourself. It can't be like, oh, my friend came and fixed this, or I moved my school and it became okay, or my mom helped me. It has to be kind of like, oh, I changed my perspective or something like this, where you find the answer within yourself, or I change the way I thought in something like this. And then usually you have a little bit of extracurricular mention at the end where you say like, oh, after coming to this resolution, I began doing XYZ. And then that's kind of related to what you want to study or extracurricular piece. You bring back in the symbolism tied together and you have a conclusion. I wish it was less methodological than it is. At least in my experience, it is very, very methodical and kind of that is what works. I think there are also people who get in with a lot of creativity and using a lot of creativity. I would also say do not shy away from writing about something that's common. I think people try to like I want think that I want to write about something original. I want to do something super original. However, I don't think like there's this idea that there's no such thing as an original idea, and I think a lot of people will have similar essay topics to you. And the question is, how can you put an interesting spin on it? How can you put a unique spin on it? How can you execute it uniquely? And I think that's 1,000 times more important than trying to seek that perfect idea. And there are always ways you can tweak it to make it quirky, to make it something personal. But the high level ideas about, a family member getting sick or going through some problem or something like that, they can always be tied in. I think there are also some taboos that I think maybe it's useful to mention. You shouldn't write about doing drugs or going to prison or getting suspended, or I don't know. I'm sure none of you guys do this, but generally speaking, you shouldn't write about those things or about like your dating life. Yeah. So there's some things you should stay away from, but generally speaking, I think execution is much more important than ideas. And I think that's like the key takeaway that I can give.
Yeah, again, really great points. Um, I will say please avoid like common essay topics that everyone will write about. Try to be unique in that sense. For example, when COVID-19 occurred, people all started to write about their journey in COVID, but like everyone was going through the same thing, and it's really hard to shine in those kind of essays because everyone is going to write about the same stuff basically. Like if you have a really, really unique thing that would take your essay to a whole new level, while still writing about a common topic, then do write it. But if it will be a common topic, just avoid it at any cost. And I will say while writing essays, because like admission officers, they're reading hundreds of essays each day during the application period. It's really important to catch their attention with the wording, the storytelling techniques that you will use. For example, they always advise us to write hookers like that will get your attention. Write a hook, and then the admission officers will be like, yeah, this is interesting. Let me keep on reading this. And another thing in essays that you have to convince the admission officers that you're the right person to choose. Because like there are hundreds and hundreds of applications going on. Accepting you will be rejecting someone else. So you have to really convince admission officers that you're the right person to be thriving in the university. If they will give you a chance to read in this university, you will thrive and you will get the name of the university to different places. So yeah, that'll be my point.
Right, fantastic points again. So I'll say something about the supplemental essays because there was a lot of really great advice for the common essays. Some colleges also have like a why, for example, why Cornell was for me. And I would say to get as specific as you possibly can when it comes to the supplemental essay. I think that was probably like the strongest point in my application because my why Cornell essay was I got down to such specifics. So when I visited campus, I visited a library in the quad of like the college that I was applying for. And only because I visited campus, I knew that this library had 5 floors to it, and each floor corresponded to a different noise level. So the bottommost floor was meant for socializing. Everyone can talk as loud as they can. There were whiteboards to promote collaboration and all that. The second floor was a little bit quieter, still had tables arranged so that students can chat with each other. The third floor was already like pretty quiet. People only talk if they have to. And the fourth floor and fifth floor were absolutely silent. So I structured my essay in a way where I laid out how, like, which classes, which homeworks I'm going to do on what floor. Like, I'm going to be doing physics homework on the quietest floor so that I can have ultra focus. I'll be doing my Russian homework on the bottom floor, like talking to my peers. So I really laid it out for them, painted the picture of me being a student at Cornell already. So I got this piece of advice that I found really useful, that if you write your supplemental essay and you are able to swap out the name of the university and have the essay still make sense when you're reading it, that means that you need to edit it to be more specific to the university. It shouldn't make sense if you just swap out the name. And then the one other thing that I would add with regards to any essay, to the Common App essay or the supplemental essay, is that like a really good essay is not written, it's rewritten again and again. It took me many, many drafts for both essays for me to finally get the right one. Okay, and our next question, what are some strategies students can use to make themselves stand out as an applicant?
So it's gonna be similar to what Sasha said about the essays, but I would say research because uh, most people look at it as like I'm applying to universities, but you should look at it as like I'm applying to this university, I'm applying to Stanford, Cornell, UC, whatever it is, because once you make the research and show that you made that research in different ways. It can be, again, we talked about it already, but the culture, the people, how they live their life, the city, the town, and then if you show that, not just in essays, your extra stuff you add onto that, your activities and all of it, then it will stand out because all of them looks the same unless they make a research about it. But if you make a research and say, I love entrepreneurship and I know Silicon Valley is perfect and Stanford is known with Silicon Valley and all of it, then it becomes something else. But if you say that stuff to somewhere else, it may not be the same because when you say startup, there's a couple locations that comes to mind. And one of them is Stanford. And if you use that in Stanford application, great. But if you use it somewhere that mostly focus on medical schools and all of it, it wouldn't make sense. And I would say to stand out, do your research. You can either go in person, you can look it up in Reddit, Google, all of it, talk to people who went there and know what they like, how they live their life, and use that in the application. And people who live there already will be like, oh, they already know so much about this place, and I believe you would stand out that way.
Yeah, I think that's some great advice, Burak, for sure. How can you stand out as an applicant? That's tough. Um, yeah, I think it's really about telling that cohesive story. Like I mentioned earlier, I think Busra had a great point earlier about how you're competing directly against your peers. There was also a question about that in the chat. And I think owning who you're going to be at the university, or at least like your presentation about it. So let's say if you want to be an environmental engineer, like, okay, do you have extracurriculars to back that up? Do your recommendations talk about that? Is your story kind of related to that? I think those are some of ways that you can stand out. I think overall, again, I'm not really familiar with like the audience specifically who I'm speaking to, if people are aiming at top schools, if people are aiming at scholarships, community colleges, etc. But speaking to like, let's say the top schools, which I think most is like what people are usually interested in, having research is also a really big piece. Having if you're able to do research with, a local professor, that can be, a tiny university in whatever corner of the world you're in. I think that's something that these top schools really look for because they are research universities at the end of the day. Another piece is leadership, showing that, you've gone outside your typical academic classroom environment and you've founded a club or you founded an organization or you've had this XYZ impact on your community. I think that's another way that you can really stand out. And I think generally speaking, these schools are looking for leaders. And it's all about, I'm not sure who raised this point earlier, but the idea that the school looks at you and says, okay, this person has done XYZ. They're going to go to my school, then they're going to do things, and then it's going to bring more, fame and prestige to the college. And that's, I think, very high level what they're looking for. So just ways that you can show yourself. Yeah, I would say, just to recap, do research, take initiatives, found organizations, show impact in your community, and tell a cohesive story about what you want to study. Don't don't apply undecided. I think that's something that a lot of people do, but I don't think it's helpful.
Yeah, great advice. As Sinan said, I will start from leadership. Leadership is a big thing that universities are looking for. They just want to see you take initiative and take responsibility on whatever that you're doing. They want to see that you're capable of having a passion, having a thought process, and taking that thought into action. So leadership is a big part of showing that you can identify a problem, think through it, find a solution, and then act towards it to solve it. That's the main thing that they want to see, and I think that will be the main thing that will make you stand out. I believe like everyone has different challenges that they're going through. Everyone has different lives and lifestyles. So if you're able to identify your own challenges and like naturally solving your own challenge will be a unique experience of your own. So if you want to stand out, just try keep an open eye on what challenges you have in your society, in your community, and try to stand up um, to those challenges and find a solution, like create an action for it.
Okay, once again, fantastic and comprehensive answers. The one thing I would add here is to not underestimate the importance of networking and what that can do for you. At the end of the day, there is a real person at the other end of this application portal that you're looking at who is going to be receiving not only your materials, but hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of other applications. So if you can do something to make them recognize your name when it's your essay that's up on their desk, like that can go a long way in helping them pay just a little bit more attention to your application. So you can, not only, we talked a lot about reaching out to current students at the universities that you're interested in, but you can also like straight up reach out to admissions counselors if you want their advice for something, or I remember reaching out to them because I wanted to take some classes at my local community college while I was in high school, and I wanted some advice on which particular class would make my application stronger. And so I reached out directly to an admissions counselor to ask those questions. And in that way, you can put your name on their radar so that when your application does come through, they already feel like they know you. Okay, how important is it to have extracurricular activities?
I would say it is really important because you want to show, it's hard to explain, but like I said, I took classes in computer science, right? And one thing I immediately realized was that how hard was to make presentation, work as a group in those classes compared to my psych classes. People in psychology classes and all of that was a lot better in that area when it comes to communication, when it comes to working together. But even as a student, I was able to realize the difference. So from admissions perspective, professor's perspective, they already know. And someone who do these kind of stuff, especially in a level, let's say you play football, you're the leader of that club, all of that, and then it will look way different than others because they know what you will bring to the table because of this unique reason. And I'm sure we will talk about it, but not just sports, also like stuff like our company TechDev Academy organizing a Olympiad, entrepreneurship Olympiad. People who does those kind of stuff, entrepreneurship Olympiad means you know how to present your work project, how to work with people, cooperate with people, and having that in the application will mean once that student in that classroom, they will have a different impact, and they will sometimes lead the other students, sometimes make the whole environment in a more social, more because I truly believe once everyone is connecting with each other and happy, the work they make is way better too. And I'm not the only one who sees that these kind of differences. Admission officers and professors knows that too, and adding these kind of stuff will affect the application in that way.
Yeah, I think those are some great points. Generally, extracurriculars are extremely important. I think most colleges in the US require some form of extracurricular activities. And yeah, I guess we're limiting the colleges to the US. Like some places like in the UK, for example, it's much less important. But just limiting the scope of the conversation to the US, it's extremely important. Again, for reframing my answer around top schools specifically, you would want to essentially organize your college list, your activity list in a few different ways. So one, you'll have an awards of honor section, specifically if you're looking at the common application. So there's only so much you can do, but the real impact you can make is on your activities list. So previously I gave the example of environmental engineering. Let's say you want to be an environmental engineer. Can you have 3-4 like meaty activities around environmental engineering? I think that would be really good, and it can be adjacent. It doesn't have to be a one-to-one analogy. So I can give you an example. So I was applying for political science. It's not what I ended up studying, but that's what I applied for. And I had one of my activities was like starting a debate forum, right? So debate forum, political science, there's kind of some sort of adjacency between these two things. Or you could say someone wants to study environmental engineering. They're also an environmental activist, right? So this is kind of going back to that story I was talking about. So generally speaking, you want to organize your 10 activities into a few different peaks. So your first peak should be related to the major or what you want to study specifically. Then your second peak can be something different. So for example, one of my second ones was community service. So a lot of people do a lot of community service. So if you do 2-3 things around community service, you do 3-4 things related to your major, you can kind of see those different interests, or maybe someone says art, or maybe someone says sports, and you can kind of have those secondary specializations to show yourself as a well-rounded person. And one trap that I think people who are applying to top schools fall into a lot is losing out on that humanization element. So one of your extracurriculars, for example, could be like walking your dog or something like that, or babysitting, right? And if you're looking at a top applicant that has all of these stacked activities, and number 10 is, babysitting their little sister, like just like picture it from, I think Sasha mentioned this like earlier about, that's a human being who's reading your application, right? So they see that and they're like, okay, this person is not just a robot, they're actually a human being. And that makes all of the difference. But that's kind of, high level, the formulaic approach to activity lists.
Yeah. Again, like great points. What I want to add is extracurriculars, for me personally, I think they're really, really important because they go hand in hand with your essays, as like everyone mentioned. For example, like they ask you, why UC Berkeley? Why do you want to go to UC Berkeley? Why do you want to go to Cornell? When you're answering these questions through essays, for example, I want to be a psychiatrist, and I go like, I want to be a psychiatrist, so I want to do a psych major at UC Berkeley. I want to go to this research. I want to participate in this research in UC Berkeley. I want to work with professors and stuff like that. When I say that to the university, they want to see what I do in my extracurriculars to support my statements. They want to see the passion in me for if I have the passion to justify what I'm saying in my essays. So they look back at my extracurricular activities and see what have I done for my passions. So I think they really go hand in hand, and extracurriculars is a really great way to show them that you want something and you're capable of doing that. And the next thing is volunteering. I think volunteering is also a big part of extracurriculars. Universities wants to see that, yeah, you're a student at the end of the day, but you will go and after graduation, you will be workers, you will be doctors, you will be engineers, on and on. But they want you to give back to the community. They want to see that in you. So volunteering is a really great opportunity for you to show that you care for the community, you care for people, and you're there for people. You will do something in the future for them. And yeah.
All such really good answers. I just want to piggyback off of what Busra said about how your extracurriculars are a way to actually demonstrate your passion, not just say that you like something, but prove that you have been involved in it, you know what it is, and you truly do want to take that passion further. And I want to bring up a concept, I guess, that helped me shape my application. I had read this, it's written by a Harvard alum. It's the idea of a spike candidate, which some of you may have heard about before. Basically, the idea is that a lot of people have this conception that colleges are looking for a well-rounded candidate that you can picture as like a nice, neat circle. But in actuality, colleges love to see what is termed as a spike candidate, where they are well-rounded, but they have one particular area of expertise or passion that is demonstrated in their application as such. So, I did that with my application. My spike was research and mentorship, and you can see, in all of my extracurricular activities, because I was president of mentorship clubs at my high school, because I did the research summer programs, that I was clearly demonstrating my interest through my extracurricular activities. Okay, and so I'm going to skip over our last question and jump straight to any live questions, if there are any. I know some were already answered in the chat. If you have thought of a question that you want to ask, either to a specific panelist or to all of us, feel free to drop it in the chat right now or unmute. if not, we can also jump back and ask that last question that I skipped over. Right. Okay, we've got one. Okay. Oh, we cannot unmute. Gotcha. Okay. I'm getting some direct messages and some not direct messages. I'll just the most recent one that I have is it common to jump from an Ivy League college to an Ivy League college from a community college? And that one was addressed specifically to me. So I will say that I would say it's more common than you think. It's generally uncommon, but it doesn't not happen. When I was at Cornell, there was a population of community college transfer students that was large enough for me to start a whole organization for this particular population. So I would say, at least for Cornell, it's actually not entirely uncommon. And judging from our panel here today, it seems that it's not that uncommon for other schools either. Do any of the other panelists have any direct questions addressed to them or want to take one that was asked in the general chat?
Someone asked the SAT scores. I think it's just like one data point, but I can say I had a 1520. I don't know if anyone else wants to share theirs.
I don't remember mine. I think I took it when I left Turkey and I didn't even know English. So I took it just so I would be motivated to study more for English, but I don't even remember. I remember it was something around 12 or 1300, I think.
From my perspective, I'm a bad example for this question because at the time where I was applying, SAT and ACT requirements was not there. So I was on the verge of taking the SAT, but I didn't take it. Still applied and got the admission. So that's also an option right now, I think.
My SAT score, I also don't exactly remember it because for me, we're talking like what, 5 years ago or so. But I think it was high 1400s if I have that correct.
Sorry, what was this question, the long question? I don't think it's late. It's just there's so many different ways you can go with that. That's the thing. If one way doesn't work, you can choose another way to go into those universities like Rice University or University of Texas. Like I said, I don't even remember my essay. Sometimes some people just come in and then do CC and then get into any school they want to. And also, I know that the classes in Turkey is way more harder. And if you finish one class there, I'm sure there's a way to show that in applications that your B there is maybe a A plus here. You just need to be able to maybe articulate it well and explain it because you're not the first Turkish international student or Turkish student. I know so many people who came here and first 2 years they didn't have to study at all just because they already knew those topics from high school in Turkey. So if you can either articulate it in a way or find a different way, I'm sure you can do it. It's not too late.
Yes. Okay, great. I was also about to answer the question that Senan just answered really well in the chat. And then I would also add to that, if you have extracurriculars that are in an area that is not necessarily the area of interest that you're trying to portray to the university, what you can do is to a certain degree, it depends on how you talk about your extracurricular activities, like how you describe what you actually learned from them. So if you can describe your extracurriculars in a way where like, I learned these skills that would help me in this other area, like that's just a way that you can connect them. All right, and that brings us to time. So if you have more questions, feel free to connect with us on LinkedIn. Also, please check out TechDev Academy's Elite College Prep program. That is the little QR code in the corner of the screen. Thank you all for joining us today, and thank you to the panelists.
Yeah, thank you, everyone.